Luckin Coffee admitted faking $310 million in revenue. It was delisted from Nasdaq. So how did it end up with more stores than Starbucks in China? Rewind 2 years, early 2020. Inside hundreds of Luckin stores across China, investigators working for an anonymous research effort are sitting with hidden cameras, counting cups, saving receipts, timestamping every sale. They aren't police. They aren't auditors. They're building a case against a company worth $12 billion. And it has no idea it's being watched yet. Store by store, they're matching what customers actually buy against what the company is telling Wall Street it sold. 2 sets of numbers. Only one of them can be true. Welcome to Tycoons and Traitors. Empires built on nerve, and the greed that brought them down. By the time it's finished, that stakeout will run 11,260 hours across 620 stores. It's a scale of fieldwork you'd expect from a government regulator, mounted instead by people with no badge and no subpoena. It will help take down a Nasdaq-listed company in weeks. But here's the part almost nobody tells you. It won't kill the company at all. To understand how the fraud happened, start with the man behind it. Lu Zhengyu had already built one company that went public, a car rental giant, taken to market years earlier, grown the same way, fast, on other people's money, chasing scale before profit. He knew exactly how to turn an idea into a listed company, fast. In 2017, he decided coffee was next, and he'd do it in less time than it takes most startups to find a permanent office. There was no cozy seating, no line at a register, just an app, a coupon, and a small counter for pickup. Buy one get one free coffee, over and over. Funded by outside investors to get a phone number and a habit into as many hands as possible. The pitch to Wall Street was blunt. Outstore Starbucks in China, faster than anyone thought possible. And for a while, on sheer store count, it was actually working. And here's the thing. This was 2018, and money was cheap. Growth was the only story anyone in venture capital wanted to hear. And a coffee chain that added 1,000 stores a year looked less like a business and more like a rocket. Investors didn't ask whether any single store was actually profitable. They asked how fast the next funding round would close, and whether they could get in before the IPO window closed. It worked, on paper, spectacularly. In about 18 months, Luckin went from its first store to more than 2,000 of them. More locations than most coffee chains open in a decade. In May 2019, it rang the opening bell on Nasdaq at a valuation near $4 billion. A coffee company built on discount coupons had gone public in under 2 years, and Lu Zhengyu had done it again. But the growth Wall Street was paying for wasn't real. After the IPO, staff inside Luckin began inventing it. Coupon redemptions that were never made, revenue booked for orders that never happened, quarter after quarter. Roughly $310 million of sales, manufactured across just a few quarters of 2019. Enough fake revenue to make a genuinely fast-growing company look even faster than it was. Which brings us back to that stakeout. In January 2020, an anonymous 89-page report, built on those 11,260 hours of footage, reached a short seller most people had never heard of, Muddy Waters, founded by Carson Block. Nobody knows who sent it or why. Whoever they were, they'd done the kind of forensic legwork most regulators never bother to fund. Muddy Waters published the allegations to the world. Luckin denied everything, called in outside lawyers, and promised its own investigation would clear its name. But the numbers in that report were too specific to wave away. The stock wobbled, then started to slide. 10 weeks later, Luckin's own board confirmed it. An internal investigation found staff had fabricated the sales, just as the anonymous report described, almost to the letter. The stock lost more than 3/4 of its value in a single session. Billions in market value gone before lunch. Investors who had trusted the growth story, pension funds, index funds, ordinary people's savings among them, watched a fortune disappear on numbers nobody had actually checked. If a fraud this specific, first exposed by anonymous fieldwork, not a regulator, is new to you, A like genuinely helps this reach more people who'd want to see it. The executives responsible for the fabricated numbers were removed. Lu Zhengyao himself had pledged much of his personal stock as collateral for loans. When the price crashed, his lenders seized and sold those shares, and he lost his grip on the board of the company he'd built. Nasdaq delisted the stock that summer. The Securities and Exchange Commission later fined the company $180 million for defrauding investors. On paper, Luckin Coffee was finished, a cautionary tale that looked permanently dead. Except the stores never actually closed. In 2021, Luckin sought Chapter 15 protection in US courts, not to disappear, but to restructure roughly $460 million in debt without shutting a single storefront. Creditors were repaid through a mix of cash, new notes, and equity. New investors took control of the board, and underneath the scandal, an ordinary coffee business kept opening doors, quarter after quarter, almost as if nothing had happened. New leadership stripped the business back to the one thing the fraud had never actually needed to fake: cheap, convenient coffee that people genuinely wanted to buy. That doesn't excuse the fraud. It explains why the business underneath it survived. A viral coconut-flavored latte, launched in 2021, became an overnight retail phenomenon, selling millions of cups within days. Expansion pushed hard into smaller towns Starbucks had never bothered chasing. Same aggressive discounting as before, minus the invented numbers. By 2024, Luckin Coffee had overtaken Starbucks in China by store count, in the very market Starbucks had led for 2 decades. By some counts, it now runs more than twice as many stores. The company that admitted to fabricating $250 million had become China's biggest coffee chain. And Lu Zhengyao, the founder who lost control of the board, he didn't retire. He started a new chain, Coty Coffee, built on the exact same playbook of deep discounts and breakneck store openings. Within a couple of years, it had thousands of locations of its own. A coffee empire he no longer owned, now competing directly against the one he'd built and nearly destroyed. If you want the rest of these stories, the empires that got caught and the ones that somehow didn't, subscribe to Tycoons and Traitors. That 11,000-hour stakeout did what it was built to do. It exposed the lie. It wiped out investors. It ended careers. But the company that lie built is still standing, still growing, still selling more coffee in China than Starbucks does. Many of the people who lost their savings on Luckin stock in 2020 never recovered those losses. The people who bought into the rebuilt company afterward have, by most measures, done very well. Luckin didn't survive because the fraud worked. It survived because there was a real, cheap coffee habit underneath the fake numbers, one that outlasted the lie that built it. So here's the question nobody in this story wants to answer. When a fraud turns into a real business, who exactly was betrayed?